So this is a quick lesson on sketching quadratic graphs. So we already know that a quadratic graph is either a U or an N shape. And you should know that if the x squared term is positive, it's a U shape, and if the x squared term is negative, it's an N shape. So let's look at a few examples of these then. So if I wanted to quickly sketch the graph of y equals x plus 2, x minus 3. First thing I'm thinking about when I see this question is I look at it and I say, right, I know that when I multiply this out, I'm going to end up with a positive x squared. There's an x times an x, so it's going to be a positive x squared. So I first of all know this graph is going to be a U shape. When I'm sketching a graph, all we need to know is the shape and where it crosses the axes. So first of all, where it crosses the x-axis, so it always crosses the x-axis when y is 0. So if we look at this example, if I put in that y is 0, and have 0 equals x plus 2, x minus 3, and we know that if two things multiplied together give us 0, either one of those must be equal to 0. So I can say in this case either x equals minus 2 or x equals 3. So this graph must cross the y-axis at 2 points. It crosses at both minus 2 and 3, or the x-axis, sorry, at minus 2 and positive 3. So this graph is going to cross the x-axis at minus 2 and positive 3. So all my sketch has to look like something like that, and I mark in that that's minus 2 and that's a 3. Then I also need to know where it crosses the y-axis. Well, I can say that it crosses the y-axis when x equals 0. And what I would do with this is, I would look at my original equation, which was y equals x plus 2, x minus 3. And I would just say, what happens if I make both of these x's zeros? So if they were both a 0, can you see that that equation would become 2 times minus 3, which gives me minus 6. So this crossing point here must be minus 6. And that's all you need to sketch a graph, the shape of it and where it crosses your axes. Okay, so let's look at sketching this graph. So again, it's going to be a quadratic. I know that when I multiply this out, I'm going to get a positive x squared. So it's going to be a U-shaped curve. If I look this time at where it's going to cross the x-axis, it's going to cross the x-axis when y is 0. So when y is 0, then I can say x times x minus 3 is 0. If two things multiplied together to give 0, either the x is 0 or the x minus 3 is 0. And x minus 3 being 0 will give us that x is 3. So this graph is crossing my axes at 0 and at 3. So if I do a quick sketch of this, I know that this graph is going to cross here at 0 at the origin and here at 3. This time, I don't really need to worry about where it's crossing the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis when x is 0, but if we put x is 0 back into our equation at the top, we'll get 0 times minus 3, which is just 0. And you can see anyway that that's this point where it's crossing the y-axis. This time, if we think about multiplying out these two brackets, hopefully you can see that you're going to end up with a negative x squared. So this graph is actually an N shape. So let's think about where it's going to cross the axes. So again, it crosses the axes when y is 0. So when y is 0, I can say that x plus 1 times 2 minus x will be 0. So either x plus 1 must be 0 or 2 minus x must be 0. If x plus 1 is 0, then x is minus 1. If 2 minus x is 0, then x must be 2. So So this graph is crossing the axes at -1 and at +2. So again, quick sketch of our graph. It's crossing at -1 and at 2. Just remember this time that actually our graph is an N shape. So we do a quick sketch of our graph. It's crossing here at -1 and here at 2. And again, to find this point where it's crossing the y-axis, I say at that point, x is 0. So if I put 0 back up into my original equation, I'll get y as 0 plus 1 multiplied by 2 minus 0. Well, that'll be 1 times by 2. So this point must be the point 2.